Okay, so on this week's episode, we've decided to discuss planet Hoth and all that is relevant to it in context with Disney Infinity. And we thought the best place to start with that would be a discussion about playsets, particularly in Disney Infinity. What would we think would work in a playset situation for Disney Infinity? So perhaps maybe Dan, do you want to start us off?
I can do that.
Perhaps
I
a
think,
description of Hoth. Perhaps just, I mean, for any, let's just start off with a description of Hoth first, maybe. Just for anyone who doesn't know for some strange reason.
okay, it depends how far you want me to go. I've actually got the Wikipedia page open on Hoth, so we can say it's it's a big ice planet with and to quote, not enough life on it to fill a space cruiser.
There isn't enough life on this ice cube to fill a space cruiser.
But then you've got the Wikipedia thing, which explains that it's like a metallic molten core with volcanoes protruding from the surface, which isn't explored in the films, which would then open up the question to, if we were going to look at Hoth in a playset, would you follow the storyline of the film, or would you put an independent adventure in there? And if so, would that independent adventure follow what we saw in the film, or would it be opened up to the greater lore? And is the greater lore considered expanded universe, or is it still considered classic universe, considering it is seen in the classic trilogy, or the canon?
Yeah, I guess the issue is it's such an iconic scene as far as the original trilogy is concerned, that Hoth battle. And I mean, it's been explored countless times before, the Hoth battle in other video games, but that doesn't make it any less enticing. Like, we've said in previous episodes how we don't want a retelling of the original trilogy story, but at the same time, that battle's so cool. But I guess I don't see any issue in creating a battle that's similar. Like, it could be a side battle. Maybe there was a similar battle happening on a slightly other section of the planet, so to speak, but effectively it was the same, vehicles and stuff that were involved in that, which we'll get into later. But Logan, what do you think on the topic?
Hoth is interesting because, I mean, we're talking about it in a playset context or something like that, and honestly, like you said, Hoth was a scene in Empire, so I don't see it supporting an entire playset. I see it almost like as a stage in a playset, with the almost like Battlefront did and stuff like that, with the snow speeders and all that stuff, and the battles of the AT-ATs, and I don't see like enough there. Maybe if they recreated a storyline to why there's a base there, or or something like that. I don't know if there's just enough there. I mean, we get a lot of cool things out of it, if we were to pursue it, with mounts and vehicles and character costumes and such. But I don't think there's enough to support 6 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, I definitely should clarify that. That's maybe what I was getting at. That it was like, if it appeared,
6 hours?
if it was just a section, if it
Or
was just
two,
a section
yeah.
of a playset,
Yeah.
then what would
I
we
was gonna say,
see?
did you play the Guardians? Did you play the Guardians playset?
Yes, let's not bring up dark issues of the past. We're talking about 3.0 here. That's all fixed in 3.0 in theory.
Absolutely. If I can interject, Jay.
Yes, go ahead.
I think what you're about to say was what I was thinking as well, which is it. Just talking about Hoth in regards to playsets doesn't mean we need to necessarily look at a dedicated Hoth playset. It's just that even if it was a portion, there could be a battles playset where you kind of can replay the greatest battles of Star Wars. So you might have the Battle of Endor, the Battle of Hoth, in that context. But as you said, Logan, so many good elements were introduced. We got the Walkers, we got the Wampers, we got the Tauntauns, we got the Snow Speeders, all in that first act of Empire that is so iconic. And there might have been a separate battle, there might have been a back door, like the bunker, Endor. There might have been a back door to the Hoth base, and there was a few elements there. But at the same time, just like the Pirates playset, it didn't follow the storyline, but there were still pirate ships, there was still the Kraken, there was still the characters, there was still treasure to collect. You're still going to use the elements, and if you're going to have a Hoth playset, you can't not have walkers.
Uh-huh.
You know, it doesn't have to be the Battle of Hoth, but it can be a Battle of Hoth.
And on that point, I'd like to say in my outspoken opinion about we talked about how the Disinfinity is toys based. I think they would have to address the issue that just because of the fact that it is toy based, that whatever the playset was, I think it would have to be able to be played from both point of views. I think if you're going to have an at toy, you should be able to actually play as the enemy, so to speak, in the game. It shouldn't always be from the hero's perspective. And I think that's right across the board. I think that's true of Star Wars. I think at the end of the day, some people want to be the Sith and so on and so. And I think that'd be really cool to be in that sandbox toy arena, to be able to go, cool, I'm going to drive the at toy, or you know, or vice versa. It doesn't matter where you want to play. I just like the idea of being able to jump in from whatever perspective and whichever vehicle, and not being forced to just be the good guys warding off the invasion of the enemy.
And I
So
think
going
if
against
they
every
were
other.
to pers-
So go on, Logan.
I mean, in pursuing from what we've seen in the past iterations of Disney Infinity, and knowing the fan base of Star Wars, you know, there's just as many fans of the Empire as there are of the Rebellion, if not more. I mean, you can see that with the 501st, you know, the legion of fans who dress up as stormtroopers everywhere. There has to be, like, if you make 3.0 with Star Wars and don't put Vader in it, there will be an uprising. You know, I mean, you can't not play as the bad guys in this game.
Well, they've set that up with every other franchise they're doing. You know, you can play as Barbossa and Davy Jones. You can play as Loki eventually, but Loki and Ronan and all that. You know, you get that. You can play as Syndrome in The Incredibles. Right. But just on what you said, Jay, they haven't really allowed you to play as the bad guys in any other playset, as apart from the character. You know, you can't be the Kraken, you can't be the robots from Incredibles. You know, I do get what you're saying, and I think that would be great, but I think just sitting in a walker and driving it around, that would be, I think, something more of a vehicle or a mount that you could do. I don't know that in the playset you'd probably be the good guys, because in the playset you're the good guy in the good guy role in every playset.
This is definitely a good way of looking at it. I guess you're right, because at the end of the day, the playset, ultimately what a playset means is story. It's got to be a story from start to finish. It's not necessarily that open sandbox. That's why they invented the toy box, I guess.
That's why the toy box is there, yeah.
Or it could be one of the new toy box games that we introduced into 2.0. But you're right, it should be story based, a start to finish story.
And I think Hoth lends itself to it, you know, the play disc, the disc games versus a play set, a little bit better. Like, I think in that realm,
mm-hmm.
You know, whether it be like in the two that we've seen so far, you know, the escape. I guess, you know, like, we can be two inanimate characters that aren't Luke and Leia that we've seen on screen, you know, just trying to get out of Hoth during that attack. That would be kind of cool way to, you know, display Hoth. Or a tower defense trying to defend, you know, the base as the AT-ATs and everything else is storming on them. I guess that would be a good way to represent that planet.
Mm.
Well, before we move on from the topic, because it sounds like we are sort of edging towards the thing that maybe Hoth isn't really, it's certainly not going to handle its own playset by itself. If it's in there at all, it's going to be an appearance. We're saying that the battle may not be conducive to the playset because we don't want to rehashing the original trilogy. The only other area to discuss really then is just the environment itself through the what's the ride-on ones again? The ride-on creatures, the one they cut open.
The Tauntauns?
The Tauntauns. And the Yeti thing. What's the Yeti thing called?
Wampa.
Yeah, so again, not the huge Star Wars fan here. That's why I have these pros on. But the point is, I guess you could have maybe again just a section that they visit that planet for whatever reason, and you see some of those iconic creatures on those planets.
Welcome to Hoth.
I mean, yeah, like Hoth, if they were to do a Star Wars, you know, version, I think Hoth is imperative, and it must be done, because like we said, even though it's only a scene, they introduce so many iconic things, you know, from the Wampa to the Tauntaun to the Snowspeeder, you know, and stuff like that. If if they made a game and omitted Hoth, then there's no way you can introduce, you know, those creatures, mounts, or vehicles
into the toy box.
Yeah.
Well, I think, well, not necessarily, because I mean, there's going to be a pigs in space power disc for the pigs in space rocket, so they could
Right.
always introduce a Tauntaun power disc, but I think it would be very remiss of them. But while we've been talking, just thinking about the idea that you could have a Hoth battle where you battle the walkers, and you might even be able to commandeer one or even control it in some way. But there's also, we haven't looked at there's also the probe droids. There could be the probe droid hunt. There could also be a rebel base maze, because it's not just one scene, it's the first act of the film. There's
Right.
where they're out looking, there's Luke gets taken by the Wampa, then there's the missing Han and Luke, and then there's the finding of Luke and bringing him back, and then the battle, and then leaving Hoth. So it really is the first act.
Mhm.
So if you were to put a battle in there combined with a hunt combined with a maze, I mean, they might just be toy box games. It might be a Hoth toy box disc where they put in those kind of challenges, because I'd love to see toy box pieces where it was like the rebel base, but it was almost done like that maze you can get, like almost like the sewer pipes.
Yes.
Where it's an internal piece, and you had all the ice walls, and because it looks very labyrinthy in there anyway. The sets, apart from the hangar, the sets were quite pokey, and it was very very maze-like. So I'd love to see that, and I'd love to see. I think the Wampa and the probe droid would be a good, because the probe droid can fire, because it fires at Han and Chewie. So having the probe droid as a an enemy that you can generate through enemy generators and in the toy box, I think would be great.
Yep. Yep.
So let me ask you this, because I love everything you said. I think all those would make great additions into the toy box for creation and stuff like that. But all the other environmental elements, it's mostly ice, and wouldn't it be very similar to like the frost giant stuff from the Avengers playset that we've already seen? Would it be too similar, or would it, you know what I'm saying? Like, would it just be another piece that looks exactly like something we already have? Like with the rest of the
well,
elements.
I think that's actually kind of a cool thing, in that like it already lends itself to fit in with some of that Avengers Frost Giant elements we've got. So I think you could see some good creative crossover there. But obviously it is going to be a fairly icy white color palette. But I think we'll move on to discuss that in coming episodes as we continue to explore this topic of Hoth, Planet Hoth, and how we see that doing. So why don't we just we'll put a hold on that for this show, and we've said enough. So why don't you let us know in the comments what you think you would like to see as far as Hoth and it appearing in a playset specifically, and we'll address those comments in our upcoming commentary show. So until next time, thanks for watching.